All right, welcome. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on something you use every single day but maybe don't think about: the web. We're going to find out exactly how it works from the second you type in a web address to the moment a full-blown website pops up on your screen. Let's trace that journey together. So think about it for a second. You type something like dobloxdex.com, hit enter, and almost instantly, there it is. It feels like magic, doesn't it? But it's not. It's this brilliant, incredibly fast system of conversations happening all over the world. And today, we're going to break down exactly how that magic works, step by step.
But first, to really get how the web works, you kind of have to know where it all came from. And trust me, the origin story is pretty fascinating. It's a mix of military planning and academic genius.
So way back in the 60s, it all started as a US military project called ARPANET. The whole idea was to build a network that could survive a major attack because there was no central weak point. That core idea of decentralization, still super important today. Then we jumped to 1983, the internet's official birthday, when a common language called TCP/IP was born, letting all these different computer networks finally talk to each other. But the web as we know it, that really came to life around 1990, thanks to Tim Berners-Lee. He gave us the building blocks, HTML, HTTP, and the URL, that made the internet easy for everyone to use.
Okay, so every single thing you do online, from watching this to checking your email, it all boils down to a simple conversation between two key players. So let's meet them.
On one side, you have the client. Now that's just a fancy word for your web browser. You know, Chrome, Safari, whatever you're using right now. Its job is to ask for stuff. On the other side, you have the server. A server is basically a really powerful computer that's on 24/7. Its whole purpose in life is to store all the files for a website, all the text, images, and code, and serve them up whenever a client asks. Simple as that.
So for your browser, the client, to find a server somewhere out there in the world, it needs an address. On the internet, we call this an IP address. Every single device hooked up to the internet, your phone, your laptop, the massive servers that host Netflix, each one has its own unique IP address. It's just like a postal address for the digital world. It makes sure the information gets to the right place.
So, your browser needs the server's IP address. But let's be real. None of us are memorizing long strings of numbers like 142.250.185.206. We remember names, right? Like duobloxedtech.com. So, how does your browser translate the name you can remember into the number it actually needs? Well, this is where something called the Domain Name System, or DNS, comes in. And honestly, the best way to think of it is as the internet's giant phone book. I mean, when you want to call someone, you don't remember their number, you just look up their name. DNS does the exact same thing for websites. It translates that human-friendly name into the numerical IP address that computers need to work.
And this whole process is ridiculously fast. Here's what happens. You type in the website name, your browser immediately sends a message to a DNS server, basically asking, hey, what's the IP for this name? The DNS server looks it up in its massive database, finds the matching number, and sends it right back. And just like that, your browser knows exactly which server in the world it needs to talk to. Okay, so our browser has the address, it's ready to go knock on the server's door. But how does the request, and more importantly the website data, actually get from point A to point B across the globe? Well, it's not chaos, it all comes down to a clear set of rules, or as they're officially called, protocols.
A protocol is basically the secret language of the digital world. It's a standard set of rules that every connected device agrees to follow. This is what ensures that a request from an iPhone in Australia can be perfectly understood by a server in Germany. Without these rules, it would just be noise.
Now, a whole web page is made up of a bunch of different files, and some of them can be pretty big. Sending it all as one giant chunk across the internet would be super inefficient and risky. If just one tiny part of it got lost along the way, the whole thing would be corrupted and useless. So, the internet does something much, much smarter. It takes that big file and slices it up into thousands of tiny, bite-sized pieces called packets. You can think of it like mailing a book. Instead of putting the whole book in a giant box, you tear out every single page, put each one in a separate numbered envelope, and mail them all. It sounds a little crazy, but trust me, there's a reason for it.
And the two protocols that manage this whole process are called TCP/IP. Think of them as the ultimate postal service. TCP is the part that breaks the data into numbered packets, and on the other end, it double-checks to make sure every single packet arrives safely,
and puts them back in the correct order. The IP part is like the GPS for each of those little packets, finding the most efficient route for it to take. And then on top of that, you have HTTP. That's the protocol that's actually the language of the request itself, asking the server to get a file. And HTTPS? That's just the secure version, where everything is sent in a locked, encrypted box.
So, we've met the key players, and we've learned the rules of the road. Now let's put it all together and trace the entire journey, from the URL you type to the pixels on your screen. And it all happens in a flash. Your browser does that DNS lookup to get the IP. Then it opens a direct TCP connection to the server. It sends an HTTP GET request saying, hey, give me the files for this web page. The server finds the files, chops them into thousands of tiny TCP IP packets, and sends them flying back across the internet. Finally, your browser catches all those packets, reassembles them in the right order, and uses the code inside to draw the visual web page you see. All of that happens in the blink of an eye. It's pretty amazing.
So let's just do a super quick recap of the key terms. The client is your browser, the one asking for stuff. The server is the computer that has the files and answers the request. The IP address is the unique postal address for every device. DNS is the internet's phone book that looks up that address. And protocols like TCP/IP and HTTP are the rules of the road that make sure everything gets sent and received correctly.
So, the files have made it. They're on your computer. We know how they got there now. But what's actually inside those files? What exactly are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? And how do they work together to create the incredible interactive websites we use every single day? Well, that is exactly what we're going to dive into next time. See you then.